Welcome back, everybody, to more from the Sable Eyes. I'm here today with Jordan. How are we doing, Jordan?
I'm doing well, thank you, Mitch.
That is good, and we are here having a look at Zoroark Dewgong Persian and the Ganado GX, which Stephane Ivanoff took to first place in the North American International Championships. This is a really exciting list. There's a lot of things that are going on here.
Yeah, when we look at the top 8 lists from North America, I imagine a lot of people were really excited to see that Stunfisk Spiritomb deck doing well, but this is the list that seemed much more interesting to me because just the idea of how to play this deck and all the different things you can do is so cool and interesting.
Yeah, there's lots of options for you. You can play it traditionally, or you can use the Ganado GX to really shore up some matchups that weren't so good before, or maybe were 50-50. So we'll run through the list and then we'll get a couple of games in. Firstly, we have 4/4 Zoroark with Trade and Riot Beat. This card has been an excellent card for a very long time, and in the standard format, it's going to be a shame to see it go.
Yeah, no surprise to see a 4/4 Zoroark in the winning list for North America Internationals. It's just such a strong card that's had so many different partners, and even though we're not going to be seeing any more Zoroark in the near future, it's definitely good to see it get that one last big deserving win.
Yeah, it's been the best card in the format for a very long time, so it's good to see it get one last hurrah. This time being paired with Dual Blizzard Dewgong. There's a 2/2 line of that card in this list. Dual Blizzard is an exceptionally good attack that you can use to set up yourself some knockouts, and in combination with Ganado GX, it's actually a way that you can kind of create wins out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's got such good synergy with the rest of this deck, and it actually shocks me that it hasn't really seen that much success up until now, because in Australia, this card was like all of the hype. We were seeing it in all of the top Zoroark lists, winning events here and there, and in the US, it never really saw quite as much success for it. So it's great to see Dewgong be used to its full potential in this list.
Yeah, it's an excellent card, and it has a lot of good uses. Pairing in with those two cards, we have a 1/1 copy of Dewgong, which is obviously being used for Catwalk.
Persian GX, you mean?
Yeah, what did I say?
Dewgong.
Dewgong? I'm too busy thinking about Dewgong, man. It's so good. Persian GX with Catwalk. Since you're playing lots of GX Pokemon and you're going to be attacking with them, then you're probably going to find that eventually one of them gets knocked out. You can use Catwalk to set yourself up with any two cards from your deck, and Vengeance is not a bad attack either.
Yeah, Vengeance is really, really strong in this deck. In fact, it's probably the single best deck to utilize Vengeance, because we have a look in the top left corner there. We are playing 24 Pokemon in this list, so it's certainly pretty easy to get a high number of Pokemon in the discard pile relatively early, and then just attack with big numbers with Vengeance using a triple colorless energy.
Yeah, when you're playing 24 Pokemon, it's not unreasonable to get 9 into the discard pile, so a good option for attacking. And the card that really makes this list interesting is the 1/1 line of Ganado GX. Now, this card kind of saw a little bit of play early in its lifespan in like Beast Box style decks because of its Beast Raid attack. But in this list, it's not going to see play for the same reason. We're actually using this specifically for Stinger GX.
It's pretty crazy to see Stinger GX finally seeing play, considering it's been legal for so long now. And Stinger GX is one of those GX attacks that was always considered to just be downright bad. But when you use it the way that this Zoroark list is able to use it, you can really take advantage of all of the tag team matchups, being able to put yourself in a position where you can Stinger GX and then leave yourself only one turn away from being able to win the game by knocking out an already prepared tag team knockout. And also against just any non-GX deck, you can set up 3 prizes or at least 2 prizes with Dewgong. So you can really kind of level the playing field with Stinger GX and then use your unlimited resources to close out the game faster than your opponent can.
Yeah, and one of the problems that Zoroark sometimes finds, especially against decks like Zapdos in the Beast Zapdos Beasts or whatever it is, Zapdos Jirachi decks, sometimes if they get a quick start, Zoroark can fall behind and struggle to get back into it. But Stinger GX really just evens the playing field, then your opponent only has one turn to win before you can theoretically take 3 prizes. So that's what we're going to be trying to do, and one of the cards that we're going to try and use to get those knockouts is our single copy of Distortion Door Giratina. This is where Dewgong comes in. You can set up 60 damage on a Jirachi, maybe a Let Loose Marshadow, and then on the turn after you've Stinged, Distortion Door, knock out those 2 Pokemon on the bench, and hopefully Zoroark can take a 1 prize knockout in the active to win the game.
Yeah, it's certainly a busted combination with Dewgong, not only for those annoying bench-sitting Pokemon like Jirachi and Marshadow, but also just in general. There's a lot of 70 HP evolving Pokemon that are seeing play in the format right now. But even if you're not using Dewgong, it's got quite a lot of synergy with Zoroark, just being able to control how much damage you do with Rider Speeding. You can do 100 damage to Zapdoses, for example, or just any number of damage that's less than 120, and then use Distortion Door to pick off those knockouts that you were just shy of earlier.
Yeah, and it's the classic way to get around the Blacephalon Beast Ring turn as well. And now we've got Dewgong as well. It's going to be so easy for us to win that matchup. We've got so many options to skip Beast Ring with Giratina and Dewgong. We also have in the list a single copy of Bench Barrier Mew. We obviously don't want another Dewgong to come and ruin our day, and Spread can be an awkward matchup. But I'm finding more and more, Jordan, that Psy Power, putting 3 damage counters wherever we like, is an exceptionally good attack, and if we only need to take 3 knockouts, then maybe Psy Power is an attack that can do it.
Yeah, it's just one additional way for you to set up for those 3 prize turns with either Dewgong or Giratina. You can just use Psy Power, put damage counters on your board exactly where you want them to be, and set up for some pretty amazing combos. But obviously it's not there just for that Psy Power attack. The Bench Barrier is very strong as well, being able to give you pretty strong matchups against decks like Pikarom and potentially mirror matches as well. So it seems like a pretty important inclusion.
Yeah, it's a good card there. We also play 1 copy of Resetting Hole Marshadow. We don't play a lot of Stadium Disruption, so we don't play Stadiums of our own. We've only got 1 copy of Field Blower, so Reset Hole is going to be our only way to get rid of those pesky Prism Star Stadiums. But Red Knuckles is also an exceptionally good attack as well. We can take a knockout on things like a Buzzwole, or we can hit pretty hard into things like Naganadel, and we can even kind of half hit a Blacephalon or a Buzzwole Pheromosa if we have to. There's a lot of utility in this card as well.
Yeah, it's certainly not a bad attacker. It's probably not going to be your strategy to specifically go for Red Knuckles a lot of the time, but it's definitely a good out to have. But yeah, you already mentioned the Resetting Hole, getting rid of Stadiums is the main draw to this card, because there are cards like Power Plant which really can shut this deck down, and if you don't have access to Stadium removal, it's going to be really hard to deal with Power Plant. So the Marshadow of Resetting Hole acts as a easy way to just search for a way to remove a Stadium, and you can get it back with Rescue Stretcher as well, so it kind of acts as your Stadium War replacement card.
Yeah, you can Nest Ball for it and chuck it straight in the bin, and the best thing about it is it just helps you power up your attacks with Persian, so a good card there. We also play a copy of Ditto Prism to help us evolve into our Stage 1s. We've got lots of them, Persian, Zoroark, Dewgong, and Naganadel, so Ditto is going to be incredibly useful, means that we don't need to fill up our bench with Pokemon we're not going to use. And it also gives us access to our copy of Alolan Muck. We're choosing not to play Alolan Grimer. Obviously, it's not as critical that we shut off abilities in this format as it was early in our format, because Jirachi was so much bigger then than it is now. But Alolan Muck's still really useful to help shut off things like Let Loose Marshadow and Tapu Lele, kind of stop your opponent from getting themselves back into the game.
Yeah, it definitely would feel wrong not to include Alolan Muck, and I was actually talking to Henry in the days leading up to North America Internationals, and he was saying that one of the last considerations they were making was whether they want to play the 1-1 Muck line or not, and obviously they decided to kind of go in the middle and stick with just the Muck but not the Grimer, because it's not super important that you need it every game, but still such a strong card that it would be weird not to include it.
Yeah, very, very powerful. We've also got, in addition to all of those other Pokemon, we've got 2 copies of Tapu Lele GX and 1 copy of Dedenne GX. Stephane choosing to play 2 copies of Tapu Lele over a 4th copy of Ultra Ball. Obviously, it gives you that extra out to supporters when you need it, but it also helps power up Persian GX. So, a pretty hefty Pokemon line.
Yeah, it's one more than what Henry was playing, because Henry did choose to go the other route and went for the 4th Ultra Ball, I believe, instead of the 2nd Tapu Lele. But having those extra Pokemon in your deck does make your Pokemon communication stronger, and just in general will increase your... in theory, it'll make your openings better if you're able to get into Lele turn 1 every game. It seems like a pretty solid Pokemon lineup.
Yeah, perfectly reasonable. And onto the supporters, a little bit more interesting than some of the supporter lines we've been featuring recently on the channel. We've obviously still got 4 copies of Lily and 3 copies of Guzma here, but we've complemented that with 1 copy of Tate and Liza, 1 Acerola, and 2 copies of Judge. Playing Zoroark means that you can be a little bit more flexible with your supporters.
Yeah, Judge and Acerola are 2 of the more standard supporters we've seen in Zoroark lists historically. Acerola has pretty much always been a staple card in Zoroark decks just because you can attack for 1 energy and just cycle these Acerolas over and over again thanks to trade. And of course, Judge is a very strong card when you're able to draw so many cards each turn. Your opponent might not have that luxury as well, so Judge is going to kind of give you an advantage over your opponent, where usually it would only put you at even footing. But the really interesting one here is, of course, the Tate and Liza, which is obviously replacing one of Cynthia, which is pretty standard in Zoroark most of the time. Henry and Stephane have obviously chosen to sacrifice that 1 extra card draw for the versatility of being able to switch, and that's incredibly important when you are playing cards like that Alolan Muck we were just talking about, which has a pretty fat retreat cost, and you really need to be able to get that out of the active when you want to.
Yeah, one of the main ways that decks try and lock Zoroark out of the game is to find a Pokemon that doesn't have energy on it, that has a large retreat cost, and try and lock it in the active so that they can get themselves an extra turn to either win the game or just kind of recoup their resources. Tate and Liza means that if you are happening to draw this card at the right time, you can very easily get back into your attackers and get going pretty quickly. And I think that's probably a reasonable cost to pay, that 1 card that you'd lose from a Cynthia, just for the versatility. So an interesting supporter line. Onto our items, we have a very thick Pokemon search line because we've got lots of Pokemon, 4 Nest Ball, 4 Pokemon Communication. This is almost always going to be active because of the high number of Pokemon that we have, and Stephane played 3 Ultra Ball.
Yep, it's a pretty consistent Pokemon lineup, and when you look at how many options this deck has, it really does seem like it will beat almost every deck if it's able to set up in the way you want it to. So the more Pokemon search cards you have in the list, the more consistent you're going to be, and in theory, the better the deck's going to be against almost every matchup.
Yes, that's true. We've also got 2 copies of Rescue Stretcher to help us shuffle Pokemon in if we need to, or even grab a specific Pokemon out of the discard pile. It's not going to be super painful for us to lose things like our 1 of Alolan Muck with the 2 Rescue Stretcher, so we can kind of Dedenne hands away without feeling too worried. Similarly, we have 1 copy of Power Pad, so our 1 of copy of Acerola or Tate and Liza can easily be put back in the deck if we do require it again.
Yeah, it definitely feels good to have these safety recovery cards like the Stretcher and the Power Pad, because you are using Dedenne sometimes, you are using trade, discarding cards from your hand every turn, so it's good to be able to discard some resources knowing you can get them back, especially when there's so many one-off Pokemon in this deck. There's the 1-1 Nagato, 1 Muck, 1 Persian. These are all cards that you're potentially going to need to be able to get back if they are discarded or knocked out, and double Rescue Stretcher is going to really help out there.
Yeah, very powerful. We've also got 1 copy of Field Blower. Getting rid of things like Wishful Baton in Baby Blacephalon is very handy, but removing stadiums like that pesky Power Plant is also critical, so that 1 of Field Blower coming up trump. And in our item slot we have 2 copies of Choice Band, just to give our attacks that little bit more power. It means that Persian can start pushing into that 210 range, and things like Dewgong can actually do 180 damage onto a Reshiram Charizard, or even knock out a Blacephalon GX, so very handy.
Yeah, it's pretty big card. Even just simple things like making a 2-hit KO on a Rechizard with Rider Speeding is just a pretty important option to be able to have.
Yes, and we've got our standard Zoroark energy line of 4 DCE and 4 triple acceleration energy to round out our list. So it's a pretty cool one. We'll take it onto the ladder and see what happens.
Yeah, I hope you're ready, Mitch, because this is a bit of a big brain deck. You have to have your mind open, and you got to be able to adapt to every single game, changing every turn. You got to keep all your options open.
My brain's small, though, Jordan. My brain's too small for this.
I'm sure between the 2 of us, we'll hopefully not embarrass ourselves too much.
Well, we'll see how we go. Playing off here, they got a lightning symbol on their deck box, so maybe we're playing Pikarom. Hey, we get to see first because we got the coin flip, so we get to go first. And I'd be very surprised if we don't open with a good hand. Look at this. This seems a very good.
Yeah, this deck's definitely showing off its consistency, and the two of us actually know this engine of the deck fairly well because we played pretty much the same core of the deck at Sydney Regionals, where you actually managed to get top 8 with pretty much the same idea of a list using the same supporting engine and same search cards. It's just got a Nagano GX line instead of Slowking, which seems pretty good to me.
That's true. Now, we're up against spread here, so we are going to need to make sure that we don't bench too much, he says, as he goes to bench his third Pokemon. We probably need Mew. I don't know whether grabbing the Ditto here is the right call, or whether we just go straight in for the Mew now. Ditto
I'd be happy to grab the Ditto now.
Yeah, Ditto seems
we are probably going to have to fill our bench up regardless in this matchup, just because we need the bench for our damage output. I wouldn't be too worried about the spread being that big a deal, because we do have cards like the Acerola, and we can consistently get rid of their attackers without too much problems. I wouldn't be too worried about it. I think we're just going to try and set up as normal as possible. We can probably even just hold on to this hand. Maybe bench a Zoroark if you want to get a third one down. But
I'm just trying to think of, because there's 24 Pokemon on the list, so we've got to know exactly what we've got. I don't think we need a second Zoroark, and I think it's probably best to hold off on the Mew just so that we don't get completely ruined by it. They're probably not going to take a knockout. Worst case scenario, they let loose us and everything goes horribly wrong. But we've got so many outs to find a Zoroark, you'd have to think that we'd find one eventually.
Yeah, hopefully. I think we made a good choice by not benching things, because you never know if they're going to get a turn 1 flying flip, and not only did they get a turn 1 flying flip, we also reduced their draw a little bit from that Erica's Hospitality.
Yeah, so that ends up being quite lucky, but they are going to let loose here, so we're going to have to try and get into our Zoroark off of this let loose to 4, but that's okay. We should be fine. It's the worst that could happen.
Well, we got a Zoroark, we got a Nest Ball for the Mew, so this is pretty much the perfect hand we could opt for.
Yeah.
We could even potentially set up a second attacker with another double color Sanji, or probably don't need to. But even the Zoroark there isn't a bad top deck, because we could potentially use Pokemon Communication to get a second Zoroark if we wanted to, instead of the Zoroark. But we do need to make sure we get enough bench Pokemon to take this knockout.
Well, we need one more. We've got the Nest Ball, so we can always chuck it down, but my concern is that we don't have access. We don't want to chuck away the energy, because I know we've got one prized. I'm thinking maybe we trade the Nest Ball and see what we get, and then we can always
either trade the Nest Ball or the Pokecom. If we trade the Pokecom, we guarantee we get the knockout. We don't guarantee a second Zoroark, but we might not need one this turn anyway, so I feel like I'd be pretty happy to play.
Oh, look at that. It's a second
And
Zoroark.
hey, we get the second Zoroark anyway.
Look at that. Look at that.
I'd almost consider not even using trade on this turn, though, because both the Double Colossus and the Rescue Stretcher are really important resources for this matchup, because you always want to be able to get that Mew back as soon as it's knocked out. So I'd consider just Nest Balling for Mew here and just taking the turn 2 knockout without using our second trade.
I think that's fair as well. What I am going to do, I'm going to attach the energy down here just in case. And yes, we'll just right beat and take the knockout, and hopefully everything goes okay. My Ditto is a bit of a concern though, because it's only got 20 more HP. Perhaps we should have considered evolving that into the Zoroark, but oh well, doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, it probably would have been a little smart to go for the evolution on the Ditto there, but at the same time, it's not that big a deal if we go down a prize. If anything, it just gives us a bit more versatility for what we want to use that last bench space for. We could potentially get our Marshadow if they end up putting a Shrine of Punishment down. So it's not that big a deal.
And the worst part about it is that it actually means that we are not going to be able to use a Alolan Muck, so that Oranguru is going to be active for the entire game. But that's okay, it's fine.
Yep, and thanks to our Mew, we are going to be surviving on 10 HP. We will have to evolve it this turn if we don't want to get knocked out, because in between turns, they will be able to just knock it out by converting another Weezing.
I really
and
want
of
to
course they
find
have
the
a spell tag.
I want to find the Field Blower this turn so I can take this knockout. My question would be: Are we gonna trade this Choice Band away and see if we can get it, or are we gonna judge, give him an extra card, and then go for it from there?
I think it's probably stronger to play the Judge first. We can maybe attach the Choice Band just to get it out of our hands, because it's a relatively dead card in this matchup.
Yeah.
Play the Judge, and then we've got as many trades as we can find to to get whatever resources we are interested in. We've even got the muck if we wanted to shut off that Oranguru. That's certainly not a bad idea. But
the problem with that is that we'd shut off our Mew as well, so maybe not the best idea.
Yeah, I think that our Mew is more valuable than their Oranguru.
I feel like trading away the muck is that's probably the smartest play. Get rid of that. We've got a Dedenne here, which I feel like I might chuck as well. He's not coming up. Boop.
We haven't drawn another evolution Pokemon though, which is a little concerning because it would have been nice to evolve that Ditto this turn.
And I think it's just going to have to be a dead Ditto, unfortunately. I mean, unless we do want to go for the muck.
So, if they do kill our Ditto, we've got our Mew. We've got the rescue stretcher in hand to get it back. So not looking too bad so far. We can hold on to our field blower for later on because I'm sure we're going to want it again soon.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. And the good thing here is we've got a triple accelerated energy, so we could potentially find ourselves a Dewgong and start attacking for big damage on to things like Marshadow and maybe even a Coughing as well next turn. Our opponent taking the knockout on the Ditto and leaving that Mew on 40 HP. And we'll top deck a Lily.
I'm actually pretty surprised that they knocked out the Ditto there. If I was them, I would have prioritized putting 10 more damage onto the Mew so that when they get this wheezing out, they can use the ability to knock out the Mew and the Ditto at once. But they might be having a bit of a bad hand, so wanting to take a prize card straight away to increase their hand size certainly isn't a bad play.
No, it's not an awful option. We've got access to 3 trades here because of the Acerola, which is really good. And we could potentially, like I said last turn, we could potentially find ourselves in a position where we can attack with Dewgong and start setting up some knockouts. But if this Weezing doesn't attack, then we're not really in any risk of anything bad happening here at all.
Yeah, unfortunately for us, they do have the Mew in play, so without access to muck, the Dewgong's not average. But what's good for us is that we've got a bench space available to us, so after this turn, we might be able to find our reset whole Marshadow to get rid of the Shrine without having to waste our field blower on it.
That could be a big play. I'm playing down the Tapu Lele now, the fairy one. Getting ready to start moving damage counters around, but they need to have an attachment, and there isn't one there. So we are going to be able to survive another turn. There's a Giratina. That's a pretty good trade target. Let's get rid of that.
Yeah, seeing that energy there is a pretty big deal. So if we can find access to Marshadow this turn, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot because we could even use Stretcher to shuffle it back in the future and get multiple uses of it.
Yeah, we're feeling pretty good here. I'll get rid of Tapu Lele from this second trade. I don't think we're going to need it at all. There's the Ultra Ball, so we can get rid of the Shrine. The question is, what do we want to attack with into this Weezing? Because we can get the knockout. I'm thinking this Zoroark down in the corner here probably is the way to go.
Well, what I would do is I would just Ultra Ball for the reset whole Marshadow to get rid of that Shrine of Punishment. We want that to stay in play for as little time as possible. And because they missed the the energy, our Zoroarks kind of find to take a couple of hits in the active before we have to waste our Acerola, I feel.
That's true. I don't know if Poipol's going to come up today, and worst case scenario, we can just grab it back with Rescue Stretcher, so I'll get rid of it, and we can grab that reset whole Marshadow. Pop him down there, which means we get to throw it away.
Yes. And then we can bench the Meowth just to get the extra damage, and I wonder what they're going to do with this spell tag damage.
Yeah, I feel like the target is Mew.
They're probably going to knock out the Mew, which is unavoidable, but that means that they are not going to knock out the Zoroark, which is kind of cool for us.
Yeah, but I think the Zoroark gets knocked out from the Weezing anyway. The next
assuming they get another Weezing.
So, but that's alright.
Yeah.
Let's just go for it. See what happens. We probably could have just field blowed it, hadn't we?
Oh yeah, I didn't even realise we had.
That's right. We missed field blower. Oh no! What are we gonna do?
Although to be fair, I feel like it's better to save the field blower for the turn when we can get rid of 2 spell tags at once. If they ever put 2 down at the same time, that's a pretty strong play to make.
I think the next spell tag is probably the most important one for us.
Yeah, that one didn't really feel that significant. The Mew was going to be knocked out regardless. And hopefully by the time any of our basic Pokemon are going to be knocked out, we'll be able to find evolutions for them.
Yeah, so waiting on our opponent here. They need to get themselves an energy, and if they do, they're going to take a knockout on the Zoroark on the bench, and they're going to find Seal and Meowth in lots of trouble. We're going to be able to rescue Stretcher to grab the Mew back though, so it won't be the end of the world. We just need to make sure that we hold on to this Field Blower and don't forget to use it again. A toy.
Yeah, I think after this next turn we're going to be...
Here it is! The double spell tag turn!
After this next turn, I feel like we're going to be in a very strong position, because next turn we can hopefully Ace Roll our active Zoroark and evolve a bunch of our bench Pokemon. And after Field Blowing the spell tag away, we'll only be one more knockout away from winning the game once this these next two turns pass, and I don't think they're going to be able to win in the next two turns.
They got Weezing and Lily off of the prizes. That's off of the Instruct Oranguru. It's very annoying, but that's okay.
Pretty crazy, but yeah, not that worrying. They are going to be able to take the Zoroark here, which is not that big a deal because we do have the Acerola to heal a bunch of damage from our active Zoroark. I think if we can get the evolutions on our Meowth and Seal, they're going to really struggle to find prize cards for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think so. A big couple of trades coming up for us, but ultimately we're not really requiring anything. The key for us is actually going to be finding another basic Pokemon. And Counter Catcher coming out here, they're going to choose to hit into this Meowth instead of the Zoroark, which means they'll get a knockout on the Meowth and a knockout on the Zoroark. So taking two prizes, now it's going to be even more difficult for us to get those knockouts. But that's okay, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, if we can fill our bench up this turn, I'd be confident overall. We've got the Stretcher in hand already to get the Mew back, which is the most important part. And then we've also got a Seal in our hand if we wanted to play that down. I see no reason to do that if we are looking to get this knockout.
Well, we can also use Giratina to get back onto the field as well. So in reality, we actually have all of the things that we need. I guess the question is, what do we get rid of here? I'm starting to think maybe the DCE is the card that we get rid of.
Yeah, we've already got double colors on both of our Zoroarks, and we're going to be picking one up again after we play Acerola. So oddly enough, it seems like we're not going to need it.
Yep, and I'm going to get rid of this Lily that we've just drawn into, because that's not coming up. Okay, now what we can do is we can get ourselves a Seal onto the ground if we'd like, and use Giratina's ability to get it back into play, and that'll give us the knockout. The question is, do we want to maybe use Ultra Ball to get ourselves a Dewgong just so that this Seal doesn't disappear next turn? I think that's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah, Ultra Balling for the Dewgong, using Ace to heal 70 damage from our board, and all of a sudden it's going to be really hard for our opponent to find those last few prize cards.
So grabbing a Dewgong, we will chuck that bad boy down here. And then we will play down our own Seal, and we will Giratina. Whereabouts is this damage going to go? Probably onto the Marshadow, and I don't actually know it's super relevant anywhere else. So I'll put it onto the Tapu Lele, just because then we only need to do like 100. And then Acerola, we can get this Zoroark off of the field. That threat is gone. And Zoro goes back down.
Seems like we've set ourselves into a pretty decent position to close out the game in 2 turns, whereas our opponents lost pretty much all of their damage off the board, and it's not a deck that can take big knockouts really quickly. The one thing we will have to look out for is potentially something like a Larvitar tech, which could be a little scary. But
that's going to be exceptionally scary.
We'll treat to a fresh Zoroark next turn. It's going to be nearly impossible for him to even block that play.
Yeah, so Tapu Koko
right now, I believe the Larvitar it does 70 damage, right? So it's just shy of getting knockout on our Zoroark this turn. So this is like the last turn when they're realistically be able to pull that play.
Yeah, we could potentially be okay, but they've got a big hand, and we are obviously in a bit of strife if that does happen. But I mean, if there's nothing that they can do apart from just attack with Tapu Koko, I don't see a way that we could really feasibly lose the game. I think it just comes down to the willingness of our opponent to sit through it if they can't do anything. But let's find out if they've got the Larvitar. The Nest Ball comes down.
Well, even if they do get the Larvitar, we do have Power Pad. So if we're lucky enough to Power Pad the Acerola back in and then trade into it, I think we would almost seal the game by healing up that damaged Zoroark in the active.
They're not actually choosing to get anything with the Nest Ball, so if they do have Larvitar, it must be in hand. We'll have to wait and see, though. It doesn't look like there's a lot going on for our opponent.
They've been struggling with energy attachments a lot in the game, so it's possible that the energy is something that they're lacking.
And the irony, of course, is that counter energy isn't actually doing anything right now. They've gone too far in front.
Yeah, that's the real weakness of this Wheezing deck, is they really can't afford to go ahead too early in the game, because I believe they've already run for at least 2, if not 3 double colorless energy. So they're going to be really struggling to...
Hey, that's a concession.
They couldn't think of a way to win, so they're like, yep, that's going to be it.
Fair enough. We'll play one more. Wheezing is a relatively good matchup for Zoroark. You'd think that Zoroark would be at a bit of a disadvantage in that matchup because of the fact that Zoroark likes to fill its bench up, but there's not a lot that Wheezing can really do if Zoroark is played well, because it kind of just sits and does 20 damage or 40 damage a turn.
Yeah, I feel like we could have even played that game a little better than we did in that set. Obviously, we had the Mew down, we had the Fire and the Shadows. We had all the cards we needed to annoy them. If we just play well, then I feel like that matchup's relatively easy for this deck. Yeah. Hopefully we find a matchup, though, where we'll be able to show off Stinger GX.
Well, I feel like we might be in a decent shot here. I mean, we've got some Naganadel sleeves on the opponent's side of the field, so this could be an interesting mirror match, perhaps. And there's a Poipole, so we are playing against something. Oh, it's a Seal! This is it! It's happening, Jordan! We're playing a mirror.
It's a mirror match. And I don't know about you, Mitch, but we've played quite a few Zoro Dewgong mirrors, and you know it's a pretty good thing to do in a Zoro Dewgong mirror. To use Dewgong too.
Is it having Dewgong in the active? Is that...
That is involved. That is a pretty
usually the way that it goes.
Of course, if this is a 60-card mirror, we will have to look out for the chance of them getting a new one to the bench. If that happens, then we might need to find our own Alola Muck. But we've got the one of Alola Muck and Ditto, so we've got a pretty decent hand. Probably Lily for a bunch of cards next turn if Lele is in deck. I'd be feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, it seems like a decent start for our opponent as well. We're going to hit up a Nest Ball here, and our go-to is probably going to be Ditto. Let's just check and see. Muck's in play, we've got access to him. Persian's actually in the discard, but that's okay. Okay, cool, no worries, that's fine.
Scary thing that I just noticed is that we don't have access to our own Mew, so if our opponent's able to get a really strong turn next turn, then there's nothing really that we can do to stop a dual wield.
It's going to be fine. Let's not concern ourselves with what ifs.
Seems fair.
Alright, we're going to grab ourselves a Tapu Lele. Now, the interesting decision that we have to make, as I grab this Lily, is do we attach the DCE to the active in order to give ourselves the best outs to using Dewgong next turn, or do we perhaps attach it elsewhere and or even hold it in the hand?
I would almost even consider Ultra Balling it away just to give ourselves more card draw off of Lily, considering this is a matchup where triple colorless energy does seem more important overall than double colorless energy. I mean, obviously it's still an important card, but I feel like we probably only need 2 or 3 instead of full playset, so being able to grab ourselves 7 cards and hold on to the Dewgong is pretty strong.
And we have access to the TCE. We also have access to Poipole if we want to use it, but yes, missing out on the Mew is going to be a bit of a pain. Alright, I think we could potentially just hold on to this hand. I don't think there's really anything else we need to do.
If we had Mew in deck, I'd be feeling really confident at this point, but we're going to be a little bit risky here and hoping that they are unable to find Mew. But we've got everything we need for the turn 2 Dewgong, and even if I would evolve all their Pokemon so we don't get 3 prize cards, even just doing 6 damage to 2 Zoroark is a super strong play.
It is, and it looks like they are going to jump into deck here and try and find a Mew of their own. Oh, but they've actually got Dewgong, so maybe we're looking at a bit of a Dewgong duel here, and that could mean that our Zoroark and our Ditto are both knocked out this turn. And yes, it does look like that is what is about to happen, but the irony, of course, is that if all they do is attack here, then we can also do the same thing to them.
We also see them throwing away double rescue stretcher there, so they really need to draw Zoroarks off of this hand, or we can do the same play back to them. They've got at least one evolution. It's going to be the Muck, which is interesting. Because it is going to stop us from using our Ditto. But they're probably knocking it out this turn anyway. I wonder if they're instead going to choose to leave it alive now they've put the Muck down. And yeah, they're actually just going to half-hit KO our Dewgong. It's not too bad a play.
Well, the best thing for us is that we actually can just Guzma their Muck out and start hitting stuff. Like, I mean, there's no risk there from us at all. So I reckon that's probably the way that we're going to go about it. If they can't get back into an attacker, then we're in a red-hot chance here. We need to keep this Zoroark alive for a turn so that we can start trading stuff away. But apart from that, they're not going to have any Zoroarks next turn. I don't think we need to do anything else.
I mean, obviously we're going to Dual Blizzard to take down their Zoroark, but I'm just thinking where could the damage be best elsewhere? It could be 60 onto that Meowth, so that if they evolve into Persian, we can knock them out fairly easily. That's probably what my first thought would be. Otherwise, maybe just a Dene.
My gut is saying that the Meowth is probably the safest play, just because I'm terrified of, absolutely terrified of Persian. But and we can also get a knockout on Dedenne with a Zoroark or potential like a Zoroark Giratina combination or something else. We actually grabbed the Mew off of the prizes here, which is great because not only does it protect our bench from their Dewgong, but it also means that we are going to be able to increase the damage of our Zoroark GX down the line. And this Muck, hopefully we can keep in the active just for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I wonder if we're eventually going to have to knock out this Muck, because if we do knock out the Muck, we will be able to bench our Mew and stop them from sniping us, which is pretty strong. So we might be forced to just use Tail Whack to do 6 damage to the active. Otherwise, if we can get our Zoroark into the active, maybe we can start applying more pressure. But what's really strong is the fact that we did 60 damage to that Meowth last turn. Maybe we can set up for a cool Psy Power play in the future.
And we actually do get to keep our Zoroark alive here, which is really, really good. So now we're in a bit of a good position here. I'm going to Nest Ball. Let's see what I've got access to. What are we looking for? Probably looking for a Meowth of our own, I reckon.
Yeah, I'd say so. Even Meowth or Zoroark are the safest plays. I guess we're just going to trade away the Poipole or the Choice Band, because that doesn't seem super important. Not even the Dewgong.
Goodbye.
Yep. Completely didn't even think about the fact that it was in our hand.
It's okay. I'm going to chuck the Choice Band on the Zoroark, I reckon, because that'll give us options down the road. The worst part here is that we can't attach the energy, and we need to make a decision. I think the Mew is going to be the best choice. If we do get a triple colourless energy off of this Lily for 3, then we're going to be able to take a knockout on the Meowth and set up the Alolan Muck for a knockout as well. So we'll see what happens. Lily for 3, and hopefully we get a TCE. Nope.
Yeah, worst case scenario, we can just do 6 damage to this Muck, because they did attach double colours to it, so they are probably looking at manually retreating it, which is pretty bad for them. And we can then use Dual Blizzard on the next turn to finish off on the bench, which will not only activate our Mew, but it'll also activate our Ditto that our opponent...
Yeah, they've tried to shut off, and the fact that they've attached one DCE there, I think they've used one already. They're going to need to attach another energy here to get a retreat, and if they do attach another energy, they won't be able to get out an attack of their own this turn. So we could potentially be in a really good spot, but it just depends on what happens on our opponent's side of the board.
Well, they've judged us, which is a little annoying, because we were holding Ace. It could have been a pretty strong play if we were to Ace Roll or the Dewgong with 60 damage and the double colours and go into our own Zoroark. Do you think it's worth even attaching that energy to the active, knocking out the Zoroark and the Muck, or maybe even the Zoroark and the Persian? It seems like a pretty strong play to me, but
I feel like it kind of is. But if we do that, then we're down 50% of our energy just on this Dewgong. So, I mean, it comes down to the fact: do we think we're going to be able to take those big knockouts and win the game? The other thing that I'm concerned about is the potential of a Stinger GX from our opponent. Could undo all of our hard work. So I want to leave that Meowth there. Maybe even... I think the correct play is to attach and then knock out the active and the Zoroark, because then we've still got access to 3 prizes on our next turn, which is the best thing that we could do potentially to win the game. So let's just do that.
Yeah, we've got the Giratina in the bin now, so if we knock out this Muck, we'll be able to use Distortion Door in the future to KO that Meowth if it doesn't evolve. And most importantly, we're taking out that Zoroark, which means our opponent is yet again going to be denied access to Zoroark GX.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important and biggest play we could do. I didn't play any supporter there, not because I forgot to, but because I don't think we actually have to. Don't want to really judge our opponent, and Titanizer could potentially be useful if they do go for a stall of their own. And now we've got a ton of Pokemon communications that we really don't need. The best thing here is, since we've got things like Dedenne and Tapu Lele in deck, they take a knockout here, we could potentially even be winning next turn.
Yeah, we can use Distortion Door if they give us a bench space, which will allow us to take out that Meowth if they don't evolve. And then, yeah, if we're lucky enough to find access to something like a Guzma and knock out that Dedenne, we're pretty much going to be able to seal up the game. But what's also strong is, looks like they're going to be benching it 1, if not 2 Zoroark, so we can use Rescue Stretcher to get Dewgong back. Oh no, they're going to go for Mew.
They've gone for Mew. But the irony is that we could go for an Alolan Muck if we wanted to, but that would shut off our ability to actually use Dewgong. So now we're in an interesting spot. I think we promote the Ditto here, because worst case scenario that can be a Zoroark which can knock out this Dewgong.
Yeah.
Because I mean we want to keep the Zoroark with the Choice Band on the bench so that we can knock out the Dedenne if we get access to it. The irony, of course, is that we just picked up one there. Alright, so should we just go for the knockout?
A lot of options.
Should we just go for the big play and win the game?
I mean, it's certainly a pretty exciting play to go for if we can hit it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's live our lives.
At the very least, the Distortion Door on the Meowth is a strong play, because Meowth is going to be a pretty big swing card in this game. If we can find access to a Guzma and an Energy here, we do have the game on board. We've got double Zoroark trade. If we at least find an Energy, though, I'd be feeling pretty good. I don't think it's that important for us to win the game this turn. If we can knock out this Dewgong, we're certainly feeling fine. But we can just take a knock on the Dewgong, that would end the game.
We don't actually have the Persian here, so we can't evolve it. Maybe we just would we just leave this, or maybe we grab something like I don't know. What are we not going to use? Well, we're not going to use this Alolan Muck. So let's just grab
Probably
this.
not.
It's trade fodder now. So we can trade it away. So all we need is a Guzma and a DC and we win.
Or even a triple colorless will do the trick. If we miss though, we can just use Tantalizer, shuffle 5 cards, and then give ourselves a second chance at finding this energy.
Okay, well, there's a power pad, so we can put 2 Guzma back in and really threaten the game here.
Yeah, we won't be able to get it this turn. Probably just going to be forced to shuffle in and draw 5 cards. Certainly not the end of the world.
No, it should be okay. Shuffle and draw 5 for Titanizer. There we go. And what's the bet that we get Guzma and Energy here? Well, we got Guzma, we didn't get Energy, so we are not taking a knockout. And now, unfortunately, because we've already played the Giratina, we do put ourselves into a bit of an awkward position where our opponent could potentially use their Stinger GX attack to bring us even on 3 prizes. But the best bit about that is there's no knockout set up for our opponent, so even though they'd be using Stinger GX to put themselves back in even terms, we'd be able to use Guzma, potentially take a knockout onto Dene, and we'd be 1 turn away from winning again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Our opponent's really not in a good position to use Stinger. It's probably going to be one of the best bets of winning, just because we almost have the game in hand if they don't go for that. But if they do go for the Stinger, we're still heavily advantaged. We've got damage on the board, they don't, and it'll be going into our turn. So we'll be much closer to winning the game even after a Stinger GX.
Certainly will, and they're actually looking for the Let Loose here to get themselves into the cards that they need. They'll play Lily first, Lily for 4. We'll see what they come up with. There's a Power Pad to shuffle in a couple of supporters. I'm trying
to think of what play our opponent's going for, because if they're going to be using Let Loose, then they're only going to be having access to one block, no version, so it's going to be pretty hard for them to close out the game and clog their bench with unnecessary Pokemon.
That is completely correct. Nest Ball failing there because the space is required for Let Loose. And we're both looking at 4 cards. The best thing for us is all 3 of our Guzma are still in deck. We're not looking at like we're going to get knocked out this turn, and we still have access to plenty of energy, and our opponent only getting a tail whack. So we're in a pretty decent spot, and the energy comes up. So now all we are doing is looking for that Guzma.
Yeah,
There it
but
is.
once again, even... Oh, there we go. We got it. I was going to say we're in a pretty good position, but let's just draw it and win the game. That seems better than...
That's fine. Oh, it didn't even let me click the button! No, no. But hey, there you go. That's just how good this deck can be, and a good example of how to play the mirror there. The fact that our opponent got the muck set up wasn't a big problem because we stalled it active and ended up using Dewgong enough to get ourselves in front.
Yeah, pretty interesting game where both players were able to get the Dewgong turn 2 playoff without evolving all of their Pokemon, so we were both able to kind of go even at the game there, but we ended up with Zoroarks and they didn't.
Yep, and that's the key. If you have Zoroarks and your opponent doesn't, you usually win. So thanks very much to Stephane Ivanoff and Henry Brand for bringing us this this final hurrah for Zoroark in Standard. Very exciting to see what has been my favourite card for 2 years do well in its last tournament, and I'm sure you'd feel the same, Jordan.
I certainly do.
Thanks very much for coming along and filming this one with me, Jordan.
No problem.
And thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, then please subscribe by hitting the sable eye in the middle of the screen. On the left hand side are some videos that YouTube thinks that you might like, and on the right is our Unbroken Bonds playlist, where you can see more of a format that there are going to be no tournaments of in the future. Thanks everyone for coming along, and we'll see you all next time for more from the Sable Eyes. Bye.